this is a lot of this that I have here is local news reporting, because if you get the legacy media, you don't actually get the full story.
It's a little different.
Welcome to Rivera and Reeves, the podcast where we break through the bias, report the news, and occasionally trip over our soapboxes while ranting about the headlines.
Every week, we tackle the biggest stories with sharp analysis, unfiltered honesty, and just enough sarcasm to keep it fun.
So pull up a chair, grab your coffee, and join us as we wade through the spin, because the media is trash and we have zero patience for their nonsense. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Rivera and Reeves. I'm Meseidy and I'm here with my friend Rachel. Say hello, Rachel.
Hello, Rachel.
Okay, a deep breath. I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off.
Yes.
And so this episode, I texted you and I was like, we're going to do a grab bag, okay? Because there's like a bunch of stuff going on, but it's like a bunch of like random things. Some of them are connected, some of them aren't. I did my best to do the weave, if you will, like the president does.
Yes, he does.
So we will see how this goes, okay? We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about Chicago and ICE. The leaking of text threads. I don't know. What else do I have here? There was a town hall. Yeah, the shutdown, like all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things going on.
There's too much stuff. And to be honest, it's actually pretty quiet in the news today, which is, to me, it's like pretty
random
quiet.
Little things are going on all at the same time.
That could turn into a huge deal all of a sudden, but I feel like I almost don't know what to do with myself anymore when there's a moment of silence. See, that's the way it always was when Biden was the president. And then Trump came and it was like,
and you're like,
explosion after explosion every single day of information. So that now when it's a couple hours without breaking news, I'm like, I guess I could go clean my house. Like, I don't know what to do with
You don't know what to do with yourself. It was funny. I was trying to work out my schedule to fit things in. And I was like brainstorming with AI to try and figure it out. And they're like trying to create this really rigid schedule. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work because the news cycle is insane.
I have come to find out, I have accepted the fact that no matter how hard I try and make everything very, 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 like you said, rigid, it's just something is going to blow that idea up every day in this industry. Sure.
Without a doubt. I mean, even right now, this isn't on the agenda, but like the peace deal is looking a little like
shaky,
shaky, a little tense. We'll see how that works out, right? And also, apparently, the CIA is doing covert operations that are not so covert in Venezuela.
It's not covert when the president stands in the Oval Office and tells you it's going to happen. It's like, well,
he was kind of like
he gave the green light.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. He gave the green light for, maybe it's going to happen. Maybe it's not. And I pretty much take that as a green light if it needs to. It's not like he's saying we're doing that tomorrow, but then there's been rumblings on X of certain aircraft flying real close to,
we were actually, my husband was texting with our family in Puerto Rico not too long ago. So we're like, so have you noticed some more activity, like military activity? And they're like, there's stuff flying all over the place.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot. Just a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. But I want to open us up with this gem that I found first thing in the morning when I woke up. Okay. This is from the White House account. Speaking of, this is a young woman asking Bernie Sanders a question at the town hall last night.
Okay. Republicans have been appealing to audiences, especially young people like myself, online using social media. Why does Republican messaging on social media seem so much more effective than Democratic messaging, and what can we do about it?
Well, that's a great question. I think the Republicans are effective. They have learned
those of you who can't see, Bernie Sanders is currently wearing a sombrero.
That they have friends on all of the major social media platforms.
Wait, was that put out on like the White House? Okay. So they clipped something from a town hall and then they put the sombrero on. They're just objectively better at the game. They just are.
That I saw, it was like one of the first things I saw on my feed from the White House account. And I thought it was relevant because one of the first things I want to talk about is the situation. Oh, actually, before I do that, hold on. And the reason I play that is because I want to talk about the situation that's going on in Chicago. But before we get into today's episode, if this is your first time here, welcome. You have found your new favorite podcast. Make sure you hit that follow button wherever you're listening to us, on your favorite podcast app or also on YouTube. And I highly recommend that you visit us over on Substack, because there we have exclusive content for our exclusive Substack supporters. And so if you want to consider becoming one of those, please use the link in the show notes to join us. And if you're already a Rivera and Reeve supporter, shoot us a DM, because if you want either my Substack or Rachel's Substack, and we will share a discount code exclusive to Rivera and Reeve supporters. I've gotten actually quite a few DMs. Have you been getting any messages?
This is what I was just going to say. I get a lot of DMs every day, and I am not always the best at checking all of them, because there's a lot of them and I just can't get to all of them. So I'm thinking maybe comment on the podcast episode or email.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea, because comments are closed to subscribers. And so that would already be like filtered. So there's multiple ways to reach us. I've gotten a few DMs.
Okay, then you probably should send me those names, because I have a feeling they're sitting in my DMs right now, and I could be shooting that discount right quick over to them.
Yeah.
We'll
So Rachel's not ignoring you, but
I'm not. I just get too many a day. Usually it's just like a happy face or an emoji or someone telling me I'm racist. But every now and then they're lovely, like very lovely. I just don't check them all that much. So
she's much more popular than I am.
No, people just not like me sometimes.
All right. So, okay, what do I want to talk about? Let's get into what happened earlier this week in Chicago. So there was a lot of stuff going on. And the reason I want to talk about this, not so much because of what happened, but because I think it's a really good example of what is happening in Chicago and Portland. Right now, the primary focus is Chicago, and the way it's being reported, and how, like, especially if you're engaged in a conversation where somebody's going to say to you that, ICE is violating, or, oh, did you hear how they just like
rip people out of their houses and their cars?
Yeah. Or, all of these things. Like, I want to provide a breakdown of this particular story, because I think it's a good representation about how these stories are being strategically,
portrayed,
disseminated. Yeah. And also, so you have just a general understanding what is going on there in Chicago. So earlier this week, there was some news that broke about an auto accident that happened on the southeast side of Chicago. And it was an ICE vehicle along with a red SUV. And the reports are that what happened was that the red SUV ended up having 2 illegal Venezuelans in the vehicle, and that when ICE approached them, that they tried to hit the ICE vehicle and then fled. And then in the process of fleeing, the ICE vehicle did a pit maneuver, which a pit maneuver is when you hit a side of the opposite side of the button, and it causes the vehicle to spin. Now, this is a legal maneuver that is often done if it's done well, especially if you are engaged in a chase and you want to stop the chase because you're in like a public or busy area. So after that accident happened, people in the neighborhood started to come out, and it just kind of went
spiraled
from there.
It spiraled.
It spiraled. So I'm going to play this is a lot of this that I have here is local news reporting, because if you get the legacy media, you don't actually get the full story.
It's going to look a little different.
So let me play this.
Now starting to put themselves in the middle of the, protesters are starting to throw rocks. We're going to get away from the scene right now, Judy.
Okay, Michelle, you take care of yourself. I'm going to let her get off the phone. We really appreciate it. Get to a safe place. So what you're watching, what you continue to watch, is exactly what Michelle has been describing. This, again, at the intersection 105th and Avenue N. Last Michelle said is protesters started throwing rocks, and you can see that there is some chemical being deployed right there at this intersection just prior to this.
So those were, there's not an exact number on, I haven't been able to find an exact number of how many ICE officers were there. I've seen reports that 13 Chicago police officers responded and that they stepped in because the crowd was starting to
Get
move
feisty.
in and get feisty with the ICE agents. And then, as you heard, the reporters say someone's throwing rocks and that caused ICE to deploy gas to cause the group to disperse. Now, if you guys aren't watching, there's a lot of people out on the street. Like, this isn't like a group of maybe 12 or something like that. I would say there's, I mean, total, we're looking at 100 people out on the street. And I don't know exactly how that breaks down, if between agent and citizens, what have you. But the reports are that they were engaged in a 30-minute chase through the residential neighborhood near near schools, which is what led the agents to do the pit maneuver to then stop the chase. Now, Bill Malugin with Fox News reported that these were two illegals from Venezuela that had deportation orders on them. And, you know, he repeated the same story that upon trying to get them for arrest, that they fled and that the pit maneuver was conducted. Now, most of the reporting that I've been seeing has been like ICE caused an accident,
Right,
or something along those lines.
In fact, some of the reporting, the initial reporting I saw, and I haven't followed up this morning, but it was yesterday, right? Yeah. So last night when I was checking in, it left out completely that there were even illegal immigrants involved or immigrants at all. The one headline I saw basically obscured like the entire story and said federal law enforcement causes car wreck in Illinois or something like
wow.
that. And
I
so
didn't even miss.
Yeah, I need to bookmark stuff more often, but I just went, that can't be the whole story. Pretty sure it's not. Come to find out, I was right.
Well, this was the because there is follow-up reporting, because then there was some video, what looks like some camera, like, you know, what do you call it? Like what do you call these doorbells?
The Ring doorbells?
Yeah, like a Ring doorbell camera. So
two people in Chicago illegally. Video shows the red SUV coming down Avenue M when the agents in the white SUV used a pit move. The red SUV spins out of control. The two people jumped out while the car is spinning. Agents followed. DHS says the driver originally tried to hit the agent's vehicle, and the feds used the pit move only after the driver refused to stop. Neighbors stepped outside, and DHS says people surrounded the agents. CPD responded to control the two sides. That's when things got heated and came to a standoff. CBS Skywatch, Cassidy.
First of all, that was a great pit move. I'm not a law enforcement agent, but
were you impressed?
I was impressed because I've seen some really poorly done ones. That one was great. Also, I love that the protesters, they said they came out minutes later and they all just happened to have very, very large flags, like anti-ICE flags and whatnot ready. Like it's just
and there was a lot of like Mexican flags too being waved and that sort of thing. Well, you're familiar with Ed Krasenstein, you know, the Krasenstein brothers online?
Right.
So that same pit move video that we just saw, that clearly that reporter specified that DHS claims that they did it after chasing them, that it was a pit maneuver.
And that they were illegal. He did say that.
Correct.
Very clear.
Krasenstein reported as DHS is blatantly lying to the American people about what's happening in Chicago. They said that the red SUV allegedly carrying immigrants rammed their white SUV, and that's when they began using force. This video clearly shows that it was the white SUV ramming the red SUV.
Okay.
So
if people are getting their news, if their news source are the Krasensteins, Krasenstein, listen, just don't get your news from them because they are so blatantly partisan that, I mean, even no.
Well, my point to sharing that is that like that is clearly false. Okay.
Correct.
And he goes and he does a video about it too, where he's like narrating it and everything like that. But the issue is that there are people that this is how they're accessing their news, and they're getting incorrect information or very well parsed information before, like,
or information completely taken out of context, or a video shot from a different angle and then spliced or stopped before something actually happened that is important to the story. That's That's
I
happening
actually
all over the place.
let me share this. I found this wild video because one of the issues that we've really been running into, or that DHS and ICE have been running into in Chicago, is not only the opposition from people coming out, but there have been multiple reports of people boxing them in and trying to prevent them from being able to either leave an area or transport someone.
Which is illegal and super dangerous.
Absolutely.
For both parties.
Andy No, reporting with the Post Millennial, found a Portland Antifa extremist obstructs ICE vehicle and encourages other to do so in Oregon. So this particular video is in Oregon. But
wasn't this like last week? I think I saw this one where they're basically like laying on the car.
No, this is different. So this is her taking the video from inside the car.
We can play. My car is bigger than yours.
And she's moving her car around, trying to block in this, like, van. It looks like a van.
It's ICE. Please help me record. Get behind them if you have a car. If you have a car, please pull behind them. It's ICE. Can you pull behind them? It's ICE. They're trying to kidnap people. Please pull behind them. Please pull behind them and park. Please.
People are like, no, lady.
Well, he eventually manages to, like, squeeze out. This video goes on for like 2 minutes, and this is towards the end. She gets out of the vehicle. He's been blocked in. He's still trying to get out.
We have them blocked in, but we need more cars. Look at these losers. 2, 3 of them in the car.
So that's the situation that they're dealing with.
Couple questions. What do these people who block in ICE, federal law enforcement officials, what's their plan once they block them in? That's my first question. My second question is, do these same people that are going to do stuff like this understand that the party that they think that they're doing this for and pledging allegiance to, they're not going to come save them? Because no matter how much Democrats hate ICE, they're not going to come bail you out when you get arrested for doing something illegal. They know the law. They know that you're not allowed to do that.
Well,
what do these people think is going to happen? Don't tell me some Democrat came down and bailed her out of jail.
No, not bail. I don't think. I'm trying to see. I'm scanning the report.
She seems really young to me too.
I'm scanning the report to see if she was arrested, and I don't see.
Wasn't that a mugshot?
Well, yeah, because she's been arrested before. She's 28. Okay, so formally, 28 was, she's 28. She was charged with a felony and riot and more. This was in the past, though. This wasn't, like, currently. She was arrested at the Antifa riot in the East Portland, where the police station was set on fire. Delgado also is part of the Wall of Moms. She was quickly released. So
those children, super.
Yeah, but when you were talking about like who's going to be on your side or prosecute or whatever. So this is Pritzker in a local news interview.
I don't trust at all that the Trump administration is going to hold any of these people responsible. We will.
He says, like, ICE is who he's talking about.
You know, the tables will turn someday. These people should recognize that maybe they're not going to get prosecuted today, although we're looking at doing that, but they may get prosecuted after the Trump administration for the things that they did because the statute of limitations won't have run.
When you say we're looking at some kind of prosecution, are you talking about the Attorney General? Are you talking about state police? So what avenues or jurisdictions would the state have to go after some of these federal agents that you might think are operating unconstitutionally?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious some of it really is unconstitutional, but we're just talking to the state's attorneys and to the Attorney General of the state of Illinois about how they can go at this, because what we really want is to make sure that they follow the law. You know, we had the immigration services, ICE. And
I'm confused. Is he saying that he is going to actively try to prosecute federal law enforcement from doing what the commander-in-chief told them to do?
Essentially, that's what it seems like he's trying. Like, what he's trying to make an argument for is that what they are doing, be it ICE, whether they're following orders, or even if they are following orders, that ICE agents are abusing their power and what they're doing is unconstitutional. And so he's trying to make the case that someone, be it their leadership, be it the agents, be it maybe even the, I don't know, Pam Bondi, the DOJ, whoever, or Christine Nome, they're looking or trying to find a way to prosecute them.
I'm still confused. Has Pritzker been able, or any of these governors who are claiming that what ICE is doing is unconstitutional, have they actually been able to clearly outline an incident of illegal activity? Not just saying it because you don't want them there, or saying it because Donald Trump sent them when you said you didn't want them there, but have they been able to clearly state what it is that has been done? Like place, time? Okay.
No, I mean, there was recently a ruling from a federal court which put an injunction on what the National Guard can do while they're there. But again, this was in reference to the National Guard, and it was citing that some of the information from 2 previous cases, either the judge didn't believe them or they feel like that they had overextended, but nobody has been like blatantly told that
like this is what they
violation.
did. This is illegal. Okay.
Yeah. It's just kind of like trying to
scare them. That's what it's trying to do. Intimidate them.
Well, I just, so that's kind of the dynamic that is happening. And I also bring this up because I saw this video of this chick where she was just kind of like having a meltdown because she actually had played a clip of Allie Beth Stuckey. And Allie Beth Stuckey was being asked about empathy. And she had done an interview, I think it's one of these New York Times opinion podcasters. I can't remember which one it was. And it was specifically on the issue of immigration. So this girl, she's gets really, and because Allie Beth says, well, when, you ask me to give empathy, I ask you, like, is there any additional information? Should I go further? For example, because like we just gave here that, you'll receive a narrative, but you have a lot of context that's missing. And the girl, she gets really upset. She's like, I'm seeing these things with my very own eyes. I'm seeing people get arrested. I'm seeing people dragged away, but she's unwilling to ask the question, why is that happening?
Yeah.
Did they have a
or
deportation
what happened before they were arrested? What situation? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really hard, especially right now when we're trying to disseminate information and it's all coming to us in bits and pieces. And especially considering her age, I guarantee you most of it, she's getting it online, which means you're not getting full context, because a lot of times I found these videos that are like 20 seconds long. And then when I go for looking for the whole thing, it's like, it's a 2-minute, which we talked about during the last episode.
Last week. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but speaking of, I want to talk about, I'm going to go from.
Hold on. My pillows. Hold on. Do you want to see my pillow? Look at this.
Why do you have a cat?
It's a pillow. Because I have children, Meseidy, and this is what they buy at stores.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So going from the confrontation and the reporting and lack of reporting in Chicago, I want to talk about what is happening between the press and the Pentagon.
Yep. Lots of people are asking me about this.
Yes, because I've shared a few clips about it, and I've been sharing clips about it on my stories because I'm really trying to figure out, how do I feel? Because as I'm sharing it, people are like, so what are your thoughts? And I'm like, I don't know yet. Like, I'm not going to, because I'm not flippant with sharing my thoughts. Now, to give everybody an update, what is going on? So the Department of War, formerly the Department of Defense,
I'm still not used to saying that.
I know, it's kind of weird. So on October 8th, they issued a memo from the Assistant Secretary of War implementing, quote, an updated physical control measurements for press media access within the Pentagon. This essentially, now the media is trying to make this as like a media pledge. I don't think it's a pledge per se. I think that's just kind of like a talking point. But to give you a rundown of what are the new requirements, or what is this? Because the document that was being given to them laid them all out, and the media had to sign it before, I think it was like the 15th or the 14th.
It was the 14th. Yeah.
Okay. And then if they didn't sign it, they're not going to have their passes to be able to come onto the campus of the Pentagon. So first there was physical restrictions. The press is now banned from entire floors of the Pentagon. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors, basement and mezzanine levels are completely off limits. And the only floors that remain access to them are, I think, on the 1st and 2nd, but it's only the courtyard and the food court. And otherwise they have to like stay restricted. I don't even think there's only a handful of them that still had offices at the Department of Defense, because there was also like a switch out. but everything else requires an escort from the Department of War. There's also the controversial part is the handling of information requirements. And so the document says that journalists, quote, are not required to submit their writings to the Department of War for approval, which sounds good. But then it adds that if reporters obtain classified or controlled unclassified information, that they, quote, should discuss those materials with the Pentagon press operations prior to publication. And that was one of the things.
That was a sticking point.
That was a sticking point. And now there was also a warning that the document distinguishes between lawful requesting information and actively soliciting or encouraging employees to break the law. So there's a big difference between, hey, can you get me access to this alleged report I've heard about? Versus if an employee decides to take the risk upon themselves and leak something.
Handing it to a journalist.
I think that's the distinction there. And it says that falls outside the scope of protected news gathering activities. And then the enforcement would be that they would lose their press credential, determines you a security risk included for unauthorized disclosure of information or for publications that, quote, recklessly endanger American lives. And then the document explicitly said that access to the Pentagon is a privilege subject to the discretion of the government authorities, not a constitutional right. So while technically not requiring them like pre-approval, because a lot of times there was this talking point of like, so you're saying that the Pentagon has to approve our reporting before we can publish it. That's not it, but they are saying that they need to, or at least you need to run it by them.
Yeah.
The information that you have gathered. Now, if you decide to publish, like let's say they don't like it and you decide to publish it, you would put your press pass at risk. But then I think you could probably challenge that. Honestly, I'm not really sure. Ultimately, none of the press has signed it except for OAN. But Fox News, NBC, ABC, The Atlantic, The Hill, like anyone who had...
Even the Washington Examiner...
And Newsmax too.
Yeah, all of them.
So
OAN was the only one.
Yeah. They've both kind of like left and right have been in opposition to this. And I think it was yesterday where they all essentially walked out. They took their boxes with them and left. Now, I saw today a very interesting debate about this because I'm really trying to figure out, like, because I am very averse to restriction on the freedom of press. However, I've also heard multiple reports that there was a time where the press was basically just kind of running around the Pentagon. And so now Hexa's saying, like, we're not doing that anymore.
Right.
Which, in my opinion, it's just making it more difficult for the press, as in, like, they actually have to work harder for their reports. But it's not necessarily... I mean, I don't think it's an attack on freedom of speech. You can still report it. Yeah. You can still, but I want to play this debate so I saw it this morning on Two-Way between Mark, Dan, and Sean. And Sean Spicer was basically making the case in defense of the document while Mark and Dan were in opposition.
Okay.
I've press that holds people accountable, especially our government, because I don't even just believe whether it's Republican or Democrat. I believe that the bureaucracy is a problem, regardless of administration, should be held accountable, right? And the Department of Defense, in terms of the volume of money and authority, absolutely. But where I think this is, again, missing the point is there is a difference between the ability to cover and to have freedom to write whatever you want, which I am a staunch defender of, and the ability to say you get to come into our house. I don't get to go to the AP. I can't even go to, to the idea that you're saying you can come into our building, have free reign and access to all of this.
Not your building, it's our building.
It's our building, Sean.
Sure. Here's what name another building.
Here's what Pete Hegseth tweeted. Pentagon access is a privilege, not a right. So
access. It is.
It's not.
It's not.
Oh my God.
Not.
Credentialed press no longer permitted to solicit criminal acts.
Sean, you sound like the White House Correspondents Association.
Yeah.
You say that you have a privilege to go into a right to go into any government building? Are you kidding me?
They're all the people's houses, not your house.
Let's go. Open them all up.
They are. It's
all right.
I I think that's a really interesting argument because I had several people in my community when I shared about it on the Dawn Dispatch 2 days ago, I think.
Yeah.
And people were commenting and saying, look, I don't disagree with what the Department of War is doing. I don't have a right to just walk into the Pentagon and traipse around wherever I want and, gather whatever information I want. There's guardrails put there. And I think what Sean Spicer is saying is important because, it's the Department of War right now. But then what about all of the other agencies? I don't think that the press or any civilian just has the right to walk into any area, any federal building, and just rifle through whatever they want or go into whatever offices they want or, kind of schmooze and demand whatever intel, especially too. This is also the Department of War. There are things in the Pentagon that I don't want public for consumption, for everybody. I don't know necessarily. I think there's a safety issue that comes with that too. What did you think about what Sean Spicer said?
I think I kind of agree with that. And I also didn't get this whole they're like, well, it's the People's Pentagon.
People's House.
I'm like,
no,
so
it's
is
not
the White House.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too.
Like, there's multiple government installations or institutions.
Yeah.
Like, you can even make an argument that every military base belongs to people.
To the people, yeah. And
Like,
that's not,
so
or,
I should
or
just,
even your state and local government. I can't walk into the Virginia State House and be like, hey, I'm press, let me in and tell me everything. There's guardrails, there's rules, and there's also things that need to be kept private or at least need to go through some kind of authority structure before they're released. And I don't know. I think that it's the elevation of press and how much access press has always had, or at least in the recent past, to where when guardrails are put, it makes them uncomfortable. It's kind of like now that Democrats are being questioned by the press, by the new press, they're all uncomfortable because it hasn't happened in the past, 2 decades.
And I get the idea because I kept watching that segment and they were, one of the things that Mark was bringing up is right now they're doing attacks or military strikes in the Caribbean on these ships. And we
do
don't
you
know
think that you're
exactly...
going to get that kind of information even if you have direct access like you've had? I mean, I don't think that you're going to...
Well, and it was because Sean was pointing out, I was like, look, if somebody really feels like they need to talk about it and they need to I don't know, for the American people or
they're
whatever,
leaking.
just the Pentagon
they're gonna
papers.
Leak. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to meet them at the Starbucks across the street instead of them slipping it to you while you're walking the halls of the Pentagon.
Right.
So I don't, I think maybe you can make the argument, and I would be a consideration, let's say somebody is your source and they give you information and then you decide and you inform whoever it is that you need to inform. You're like, look, we have this information. We're probably going to go with this story unless you can give us a valid reason for why it would be a security risk, because we know that the government, we can't necessarily trust them and that they abuse the process of classification. We all know that, and then they decide to go with it and publish it. I don't know if you should be revoking their press pass. I would say that maybe that's the only thing that I would maybe question. But everything else,
I just think that, yeah, go ahead.
And even it says, the document itself, I read it myself, and it says that, this does not apply to anything, as long as you don't do anything illegal, you're fine. This is not anything about us, policing what you're going to write.
So it's kind of what they already were mandating of press. It's just the fact that they made them sign it that bothered them.
Yeah.
I would be interested to hear what people or the representatives that had to sign the paper for OAN, how they kind of see it differently than, say, like Newsmax or Fox.
So the Federalist isn't on, they don't have access, but
I was also interested. Did you see the picture of all of the press passes and all of the different organizations that have press passes? I was interested that there were some, like the Federalist or like Daily Wire, that don't have access to the Pentagon yet. And so then I was kind of questioning, okay, I wonder what it is that gets someone a press pass, gets an organization or, a conglomerate an actual press pass. What do you have to meet? What credentials do you have to have in order to have access in the first place?
I think the press that's been dedicated to the Pentagon it's another White House Correspondents Association.
For sure.
There's been this element of we are at a different level, we're different in some way, and so I think there's a thing of pride going on here.
Of course.
And I found it really interesting because the Federalist, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but they put out a full long statement, the editor-in-chief, and the CEO, Sean Davis, and Molly Hemingway is the editor-in-chief, basically like laying out all of the times that, the Department of Defense has lied to people and how the media has carried water for them. I mean, think about the weapons of mass destruction and everything like that. Like every
and the
single
Russia
news
hoax.
outlet.
I mean, everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're like, you know what? Give me a break. Like all of a sudden now you're so upset that you don't have access and you're going to go ahead and you're going to police the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
That's a good
give
point.
me a break.
That's a good point.
So I don't know. I do have reservations in general, but I don't think I am also positive that things have gotten a lot more lax over there because there was such a chummy relationship between
it was
Department
a tit for
of
tat for
Defense
sure
and the legacy media.
Yeah.
And now Hegseth is like, no muss,
Yeah. Well, and I think they're probably just annoyed. They're probably like, we're up in here, we're trying to get stuff done, we're cleaning house, and you guys bother us. And you're here all the time. I'm serious. I bet you it's just as simple as that. Like, we're going to throw out this pledge and maybe it'll just weed out some people that feel like they are just important enough to have to know all of the, Pentagon's comings and goings. It could be as simple as that. I don't know.
We'll see. I don't think it's nearly as bad as the media is trying to make it out.
Of course
to be.
not, but it's like we talk about all the time. It is anti-Trump, and this is something that they can hold against the administration. It's a crackdown of free speech. Democracy's crumbling. Yada yada. It feeds into their play, their narrative.
Speaking of the press and leaking text messages.
Great. I love talking about this. This is so much fun.
This one's fun. It's like, the press leaked some Hegseth signal chat messages. Now we have another. This one I think is ridiculous for a multitude of reasons. Okay. So unless you guys are perpetually online, you probably don't even know about this story. Okay. Because this is not some breaking news headlining story. Politico published
the media is trying to make it that way. They're trying to make it the most story of all the stories.
The most egregious.
Yes.
So
the most bad.
It's so bad. So, okay. So this article here, and the title is I Love Hitler. Leaked messages exposed the Young Republicans' racist chat. And I read this article, okay? This is like a 20-minute article here. And I will tell you that, yes, there are some gross things in this article. But also, there's some strategic reporting, air quoting, from Politico here. So to give you guys a summary of what this is, there was a group chat. It's a Telegram chat. And this guy, his name is Peter Guta, created the chat as part of his campaign for a leadership position, I believe for the Young Republicans National Federation. If I'm not mistaken, he's New York based. So he wanted to be chair of this group. And Young Republicans is like 18 to 40. Now, in this chat, there was
we don't even qualify. We are not young
because
by
we're
years
now.
We are old ladies.
Okay.
That's sad.
So
That's sad.
In this chat, there was like a total of like 12 people. Okay. Now, this particular dude, I think he was chief of staff to a New York State assemblyman or something, some legislator. And it was revealed in this chat, like an array of racist off-color jokes. And I will tell you that the jokes were gross. Some of them, like I could see in sarcasm if there was like a handful of them being like nonchalantly off-color jokes. And some of them were just like straight up inappropriate and racist.
Yeah.
And I will say that the main guy, this Peter guy, was the one that was the one that would most consistently share these messages. And we're talking about like jokes about I love Hitler, gas chamber jokes, calling black people, comparing them to monkeys or watermelon people, like just really inappropriate stuff. However, this Politico article that, let me bring it up again for you guys so you can see it real quick because I'm going to read it. What I found interesting was they reported all this information and then they attempted to tie it to, for example, it says the private rhetoric isn't happening in a vacuum. It comes amid a widespread coursing of broader political discourse and incendiary racial offensive tropes from the right becoming increasingly common in public debate. last month, Trump posted an artificial intelligence generated video that showed House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero besides Chuck Schumer. We have talked about this meme. We
the
laughed
sombrero
about
meme.
this meme incessantly. We also explained how it communicates. I opened this show with another Mexican sombrero meme, which is absolutely ridiculous. Okay. It also brings up how they had the Tony Hinchcliffe comedian that made the joke about Puerto Rico. And then it also goes on and it mentions a joke that this Peter guy said about a plane. He said the line where he said, darker skinned pilot, for example, echoes one used by slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk last year when he said, quote, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. Kirk was discussing how diversity hiring, quote, this was Charlie, invites unwholesome thinking. Now, I thought
I think this
was
is
interesting.
gross. I think that the texts are gross. And I also think that their framing of this is really gross. And also, we will talk about it, but there's a glaring omission from that paragraph that they could be bringing in if we're talking about incendiary and violent joking. But carry on.
Well, I think in particular in that paragraph about Charlie Kirk, which I just found like as another way to like kind of like poke at Charlie again and his legacy and paint him as a racist, but also at the same time, like he says, he's mentioning that entire context of that conversation was like that the DEI initiatives that were being implemented, I think at the time by Delta, would cause people to then have a concern about the qualification of the person that was in the cockpit and then lead to invites to unwholesome thinking. Ironically, if you want to say that this guy that created these text threads in Telegram, whether he was joking or whether he was being off color or whether he was being serious, or maybe because of what had happened, it had generated unwholesome thinking. My point is that I'm not defending Peter at all. I'm just pointing out that they're trying to attach this to Charlie when Charlie is actually kind of pointing out what it could eventually become.
Yeah.
And then I get really concerned too, because, you know, we're in this discussion, this very, which is now starting to become like an annoying discussion about who's worse. You know what I mean? And so JD Vance responded to this story. Now, let me point out that these 12 people are nobody. Like nobody knew these people beforehand. And as soon as these text messages came out, the Young Republicans organization disavowed them. This guy didn't even win this run for this seat. Like he is in no position whatsoever of, you know, within this organization.
And from what I understand, some people who were in the text thread that have had consequences now because of them being in the text thread didn't even participate in it. It'd be like if me and you were in a Signal chat with a couple other political commentators and they were all saying stuff and we're like, well, I'm not gonna comment on that. And then we were implicated in it later and fired or let go of whatever organizations we were working with or that affiliated with us. From what I understand, there were people also that had consequences that might not have even replied or just happened to be on the text thread, which is kind of wild.
My point being is like, this guy has been fired from his job. Okay. Other people in the text thread have been fired from their job.
Yeah.
Elise Stefanik and I believe Roger Stone had like Elise Stefanik endorsed him for this seat and she immediately disavowed him. There have been people that are being like, they have dealt with the repercussions and they have been disavowed by people. However, then we also have on the other side, the issue, which is what JD Vance brought up. So Vance responded to this and he said, let me find it so I can make sure that I quote him correctly. So he shared it and he said, this is far from anything in a college group chat. And then he said, it would become the AG. So basically he's saying it's too small. I can't read it. Can you read it? Because my screen is too.
It says this is far worse than anything said in a college group chat. And the guy who said it could become the AG of Virginia. I refuse to join the pearl clutching when powerful people call for political violence. And he's exactly right, because here's the deal. Two things can exist at once. You can look at that Signal chat and go, very poor taste, do not like, racist, gross, not a fan, inappropriate. And also observe that the people who are writing these Politico articles that are sobbing on X, that are now standing at podiums and saying that the right wing has a Hitler problem or has a racism problem or has a violence problem, not one of them have come out and said, Jay Jones, you need to step down. You need to pull yourself out of the race for Virginia AG. Because what you said was far worse than what these dumb kids said in a Signal chat. But they won't do it. Not one Democrat has disavowed Jay Jones for saying he wanted to put a bullet in the head of a coworker and also have 2 kids die.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I cannot hear from any of them.
he was actually asked, Tim Kaine was asked about this morning by Jake Tapper.
This will be a doozy.
Politico ran a story yesterday making a lot of waves. It was about a shocking group chat with leaders of a young Republicans organization. And in the messages were vile bigotry and filth, talking about loving Hitler, full of racial slurs, musings about putting enemies in gas chambers, sexually assaulting them, flip references to Hitler. Vice President Vance was asked to comment on that today. And in response, he cited these text messages that have rocked the Attorney General's race in Virginia. Democratic Attorney General candidate Jay Jones had written some pretty horrific messages a few years ago, 2022, about a Republican legislator and his family. Take a listen to Vice President Vance.
A person who is very politically powerful, who is about to become one of the most powerful law enforcement officers in the country, that person seriously wishing for political violence and political assassination is 1,000 times worse than what a bunch of young people, a bunch of kids say in a group chat, however offensive it might be. That's just the reality.
So you have condemned what Jones wrote in those text messages, but and there are no Democratic officials in Virginia who have called for Jones to drop out of the race. And Republicans are seizing on that as a political opportunity and basically saying, hey, Senator Kaine, you don't have the moral high ground here. What do you think of that?
Well, and look, the Republican gubernatorial candidate in Virginia has said some vile things, and we haven't called on her to drop out of the race. The voters are going to make this decision.
Do you have any idea what he's referencing? Because I literally have no idea.
No, I don't. Probably when they say she said vile things, she probably said, I am against abortion. Probably.
Or trans.
That's vile to them.
And
boys shouldn't be in girls' bathrooms when they're
I can't think of a single thing. Okay, let's let him finish. Okay.
Decision. The Jay Jones texts were abhorrent and they are indefensible, but I also have known Jay Jones for 25 years, and I put that knowledge
I don't care.
on, and it
They're
weighs
indefensible,
more
but I'm going to defend
than
him.
one really indefensible set of texts. But I'll tell you this, Jake, it's interesting to know Jay Jones has earnestly and sincerely apologized and said he made a grievous error. What did you hear from J.D. Vance? Did he say any of these texts were wrong? I didn't hear any condemning of the text. I didn't hear him having any concerns about what was said. So look, I think people in public life, when they make mistakes, they ought to apologize at a minimum. And I've heard that from Jay, and I certainly haven't heard it from J.D. Vance.
Well, I don't know Jay Jones, but I know you a little bit, and I cannot imagine you ever saying thought you did.
Sweet.
Well, look, you read these, and it's shocking. It is shocking. I do know him well. I've known him since he was a teenager. I ran against his father for lieutenant governor in a Democratic primary.
Anyways, he goes on to defend him, and then
If what he said in those texts isn't disqualifying, then nothing's disqualifying in politics, period. Just say that.
Well, also, let me point out that Vance in that interview,
Vance doesn't need to apologize for them. That's the whole thing.
Well, not only that, but he even said, like, these are gross messages. You know, he just is making the case. And, he's making the case about not ruining their lives or not, because of these text threads. And also there's another story in this that this was all like part of like a blackmailing scheme too. Like that they were ultimately leaked because of party politics that were going on within these group of people. And I'm not saying that to justify. I'm just saying that there was an ulterior motive involved too. But
hold on. I looked up what Tim Kaine's supposed Winston Sears comments were that were horrible, and it was LGBTQ discrimination. Apparently, she stated that denying same-sex marriage or firing someone based on their LGBTQ identity is not discrimination. So that is apparently what she said that was vile. And on the same level as Jay Jones wanting to put a bullet in his coworker's head. So,
and not only that, but the children too.
Yeah, wishing death upon his kids and saying that the parents were evil and raising fascists. So, just that's the headspace. Honestly, that is the headspace these people are in. I mean, even Pelosi was asked on a Good Morning show, like, are you going to denounce this? This is even I think that the Democrat, like, left-leaning media is kind of like, okay, can one of you say it's like he should step down? But they won't, because they know that if they say that, they know if they demand accountability for a guy who fantasizes about murdering Republicans, if they call for accountability, Republicans will win, obviously.
Well, and the whole
Jason Mears will win. And that is more frightening to them than being in the same party with someone who texts stuff like that.
There was actually some town halls last night, and one of them being on News Nation, which I thought was really interesting because it had like some old guard people, because it was supposed to be like about like trying to find common ground and unifying and stuff. And the guy Adam Mockler, I believe, from Midas Touch, and then Andrew Colvett, which is with Turning Point USA, were on the panel. And they ended up having kind of like this debate they ended up having a debate in regards to political violence that encompasses all of this. It brought in the text thread, it brought in Jay Jones, it brought in Charlie Kirk. And I thought it was interesting because you see the challenge there's a little bit of trying to find some common ground, but also the like battle that seems to be going on of narrative to say like who is worse, which I don't know, I'm starting to get a little frustrated with. I'm going to be honest. But here, let me play Adam Mockler talk about this issue.
Well, Andrew pointed out an undercurrent of political violence, but there is a deeper undercurrent here of political radicalization of young people, primarily young men. So the same time that Charlie Kirk was tragically shot, another young white dude shot up Evergreen High School in Colorado, and this dude was a far-right neo-Nazi who had anti-Semitic messages online. I think that there's an undercurrent of radicalization that's stemming from a few things. As a 23-year-old, I lived through COVID during my most formative years, and I was able to rebound and have a social life, but a lot of young people didn't really get to rebound. Imagine having this bubble up around you during COVID, and you never really get to pull that bubble down, so you get sucked deeper and deeper down these algorithms online. Those algorithms are then, incentivized to push the most outrage, whether it's foreign bots like Russia and Iran trying to get people outraged, or domestic actors. I think Elon Musk's Twitter feed, for example, is disgusting and could radicalize a lot of young people. I disagree with the idea that violence disproportionately comes from young progressives. It is uniquely up this year, but if you look at any polls, according to CSIS, political violence overwhelmingly comes from the right. These mass shootings come from the right. And when it comes to the leaked text messages that came out 24 hours ago, I don't think it's fair to say there's an undercurrent just on the left. I know what you mean, but there's also an undercurrent on the right. There is something deep and dark boiling inside the GOP, and it's like the Nick Fuentes faction of the GOP. You can't deny that this is boiling when we got these leaked texts 24 hours ago. I do not like when people are characterizing these as kids in college. These were grown adults. Some of them were 32 years old. One of them was a state senator from Vermont. Today,
but I also want to provide Andrew's, before we comment on this, I want to provide Andrew's reply to them.
Just ask the bare minimum from Andrew. When they're talking about gas chambers and group chats, can you condemn that?
Are we really going to do this again? No.
So you don't condemn it?
Your energy is so aggressive.
I love Hitler, gas chambers.
All right, hold on.
You can't condemn that.
Just easy, buddy. Okay, so there is a whole conversation that I want this to be attached to, okay? And the whole conversation is that we have a guy who's running for attorney general in...
I condemn that. But you can't condemn your side.
But your party is not disavowing. It still supports this guy.
Name one Democrat that supports him in Congress.
All of
who says,
them.
I support what he
All
said.
of them.
Just got asked on CNN tonight and said, yeah, I still support him.
Supports what he said?
No,
Yes.
he doesn't support what he said, but he's not pulling.
So no Democrat
candidate.
supports what he
so
said.
you're going to parse. Okay, well, listen. I condemn what they say, but I still support them
Thank
as
you.
people.
Why did I have to pry that out of you?
You are parsing. It's basically a distinction without a difference.
J.D. Vance lied on your podcast today. He said these were young.
Whoa, look.
Yeah, I don't understand why this is.
I got some journalistic questions for you guys, so listen up.
So that was, I didn't even know that was Bill O'Reilly sitting there. I was like, who's the old guy? I didn't even know that was him until he started
his
talking.
response
Because his voice
afterwards,
is
it was
pretty,
actually
I grew up on his voice, so I could
it was pretty
recognize
funny. But I play that because you see it's like
it's a game that they play, and and it's continual. And if you don't play by their rules, then they feel like they have a gotcha card. Like if you don't say, yes, I disavow every little thing that they want you to disavow, then they can be like, see, you condone violence, you condone these racist comments. And I think we have to stop. I don't know. I think that people that are in politics, specifically like elected officials, they're caught, between a rock and a hard place, or as you would say, a chicken in a hard place, because they feel like they have to make a statement, especially like someone like Stefanik who endorsed him, but I feel like it's counterproductive. And like you said, it's a distinction without a difference, because this kid, he is a kid. He's 23. Well, he's not a kid, but I mean, we're old, so he's a kid.
Are you talking about Andrew, the Midas touch guy?
Yeah. I mean, he's a baby, and he's sitting there yelling at Andrew, asking him to denounce, but then he's not even able to recognize that his entire party does not denounce actual violent rhetoric, and it's totally being missed on him.
And I think what's interesting too, and I hate to do this, but I think it's like being reflective. You know what I mean? Think about, I think for a long time, Republicans have been constantly told, are you going to denounce? And then asked again, and then asked to do it again, even after you do
and
it.
apologize over and
apologize.
Over
It's been happening for years and for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I think we've come to a time where, and I don't know if it should, I think, you should never apologize or you should never denounce. But, I think we're much more aware of when we choose to do it and not to be immediately reactive.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to point out that there is a big difference between this text thread of nobodies versus someone who is going to be basically the chief law enforcement officer of a state. Yeah. And to point out that the reason Jay Jones was so upset and the reason that he'd sent that text message is because the Republican that he was talking about spoke at a Democrat's funeral, and he was like, the audacity of this man to say kind things about a Democrat when he's a Republican. Right. That's what triggered him. Okay.
Well, and it should be this is not
different
just
situations.
And it's not just Jay Jones. It's the governor's race in Virginia. This woman, Abigail Spanberger, stood on a podium at the only debate that was offered for the governor race and refused to.
She just stared.
She refused to even speak, but she would not denounce it. And that's the entire party. And I think where Republicans are at now is we're tired of being dictated to how we are supposed to respond to everything. And I think people are tired of playing by the Democrats' rules, like you were talking about, how you apologize and you reflect and you have to think and then you have to reflect again and then apologize again and do the work, blah, blah, blah. And they're not even playing by those same rules. So I get it why people are like, no, I'm not going to apologize anymore because you don't, and nothing changes in your party. And then there's the other faction of the GOP that's like, we need to rise above. We need to be better. We don't want to be like them. So let's apologize and do the work and stop letting people like this, in our party or be part of it. So kick them out, fire them. But then also what's totally being missed and what people aren't talking about is there are certain gradations and levels. These people's text messages, while I can hate them and think that they are racist and gross, because they are, is just plain not on the same levels, like what J.D. Vance said, as giving the AG title to a man who tweeted or texted the things he said. And Democrats just aren't willing to even acknowledge that or denounce it, period. And so I see why there's a lot of Republicans who are like, no, I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to play this game because it goes nowhere.
I think back to like we're doing this post Charlie Kirk, and I'm thinking about how disgusting and vile social media is. Like Adam brings up this, I think X is like so disgusting and so vile,
Oh,
which
yeah.
X absolutely has disgusting and vile corners of it.
But he's saying that Elon Musk's tweets are disgusting. Go read some of the
he was talking about
liberals.
Elon Musk's X. Like, so he's talking about X in general, as if I'm like, have you spent 5 minutes over on Blue Sky, who was literally cheering and celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk and then said nothing about the release of the hostages?
Yeah.
So
I know,
I don't
again,
like to do
that's
this
why people don't want
whataboutism.
to, right. They don't want to play the game because the Democrats aren't even playing by it. They write the rules and then they don't abide by them. And that's why people are like, I'm not going to even talk to you about this. Because we do our part on our side and say, yeah, this is gross over and over again. And then we fire people or disavow them or whatever. But Democrats don't do the same thing. And they require us to play this like game, this cosplay thing. Sorry.
Just like,
I got to get my cat pillow readjusted. I'm all fiery over here.
I know the tensions are like insane and it's very frustrating. Okay. I will say this. They're trying to make this a story, and I think they're trying to make it a story because of the Jane Jones situation.
Yeah.
And I will also point out, because I don't have a problem criticizing my own, like, it's fine. I don't have a problem with JD Vance has said so far, but I also don't think that he needs to keep giving it life. Like, you've said your piece, we can move on from it. And my concern is that, like, it's getting, like, because initially it was just Politico. Now the New York Times has picked it up, and now it's getting questioned on CNN and what's not. And I, like, obviously they're wanting to, use this to distract from what's going on. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping us up. But before I wrap us up for today's episode, I want to do a revisit of what we're tracking, which is the gilding of the Oval Office.
Oh, yeah.
We've been tracking the gilding of the Oval Office, right? Well, apparently it has leaked outside of the Oval Office and has made its way to, if you guys remember that breezeway, that iconic breezeway where the president will walk, and now he put up all the pictures of the presidents, including Biden as an auto pin.
Yes. And we had an issue with the scaling of it.
Yes. Well, because there was scaling at the end, apparently maybe the president heard us talk about it, because now there's gold flourishes above these pictures.
The gold
so it has now
just
come
everywhere. It just keeps showing up everywhere. All over the place.
It has come out of the White House, not the White House. It has come out of the Oval Office.
It's spreading. It's spreading.
I mean, technically, I guess, like, because there's also, remember, we have the new patio has been done.
Right.
Do you think
I
there's
do
gonna
have
be...
a question. Let's talk about this. We should discuss this at one point. I actually think a really fun Unfiltered episode would be about, like, the White House specifically, its history and the things that happen, like when administrations come in and when they leave. I read an extremely interesting book about just all the, like, little particulars and secret things that go on in the White House. And this is my question, which I need to now investigate. It's going to be on my mind all night. When there has to be some kind of rules against what the president can do to the, like, exterior of the White House. Like, he can't start putting up gold flourishes like on the front of the White House, can he? This is what I need to know.
I don't
because
think so.
if he can,
no.
Well,
I can't imagine.
Maybe temporary ones, like, what's his name? Biden hung like a pride flag during Pride Month from the White House.
Yeah, but that's not to the structure. Do you know what I mean?
It's temporary. But, like, what if he finds some way to temporarily gild the exterior of the White House? That's all I'm saying. It could happen. And if you think it's not going to, I'm here to...
Don't give him
It's already made its way outside.
I was going to ask, like, do you think the interior of the ballroom is going to be...
That's what I just thought. Oh my gosh, please no. Because the images I saw, like the mock-ups for what it might look like, were actually
they
really
look pretty. They look beautiful.
Yeah, they were fine. I mean, I think at some point Melania will have to say, Donald,
do you think she's in on it?
I do not think she is any part of the gilding. No, I do not.
I mean,
I don't. I think she's got a little bit too... I think she has a lot of... She's got really good style. She's very classy. Whenever she's decorated the White House for Christmas, it's been impeccable, really beautiful. Everything she wears, how she presents herself. I just feel like the gilding is not Melania.
Okay.
But if I ever make it to the White House as press and I am given one question, I don't care if I am in a White House presser and there was a peace deal just signed, I will ask the gold gilding question for our audience because we need to know. I'm serious.
Oh my
That's what I'm
gosh, it
saying.
keeps happening. It can't keep going. It can't.
It will.
It cannot.
It can and it will. There's 3 more years, Meseidy. Do you think he's going
All
to
right.
stop now? No.
Probably not. Probably not. We still, who knows? The next thing we're going to know, they're going to be dipping the whole White House in gold.
The Capitol building. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up for today's episode of Rivera and Reeves. If this is your first time here, welcome. You have found your new favorite podcast. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday on your favorite podcasting platform and now on YouTube. If you want to become a paying supporter, I suggest you do because you get ad-free episodes, early episodes, and bonus episodes. We're going to be recording a new episode of Unfiltered here shortly. We do one once a month. The goal is, I think, this weekend. We haven't talked about it. We'll figure it out. Anyways.
I think so.
That's it. That's all we have. And in the meantime, here's a reminder that the media is trash and we have no tolerance for it. Okay. Bye.
Bye.